us?
Joycelyn here.
Wonderful. Welcome, Joycelyn. Mike, are you there?
Yeah, Michael, I'm here.
Okay, great. So it sounds like 3 hours. Yeah, just a little bit. That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah.
So we'll call the meeting to order, and I have everybody here.
Yeah, everyone's here.
All right. Next topic is our agenda.
We need approval for the agenda.
Yeah, so we need an approval for the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda? Okay. Have a second?
So I'll second, Michael.
Thank you, Michael.
You need all in favor.
All right, thanks. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
All right, any opposed? Anybody abstaining? Nope, we're 100%.
Good.
Right, so now we have to have a motion to approve the minutes from September of 19th of 2022.
Okay, so move.
Okay,
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, no opposed and no abstaining, so those pass. All right, so Brian or Aaron, which one are you going to talk about the technology budget?
Sure. So I'll kick things off with a high-level overview of this year's budget. So if you had a chance to review the summary operating budget for 23-24, you'll see that there's roughly a 20% increase in our ask. And there's some reasons for that Brian will get into a little bit later, but just some key points to keep in mind. We should be closing out this year with an unencumbered balance of roughly 140,000. The reason for this is we didn't go through all of our funds allocated for general repairs. Contracted services was down this year. And we discontinued a media box at the Farview branch, which reduced expenditures for IT. Other things of note, just some major additions to this year's budget, which again, Brian will get into, but to pull out just a couple points is purchase of a large format scanner, inventory wands, an uninterrupted power source that's needed, and software licensing are some of the big ticket items. Also, you will see is there's roughly 200,000 or so allocated for the purchase of new laptops, which are desperately in need. These will be used by staff and the public, or just staff?
Primarily staff.
Primarily staff?
Some public.
Yeah. And those, I think, are probably the key points that we want to walk away with. There's also some things at the end, again, which Brian will get into, in the way we are totaling our expenditures for electronic resources. In the past, there was databases which were in one bucket, and there were some electronic resources that were handled in the materials budget. But what we've done this year, because it makes the most sense, is to group all of these expenses together. So you see an increase there. But overall, it's not an actual increase, right? It's just the combining of two funds together. But I'm going to turn it over to Brian because he designed this magnificent budget, and he can kind of walk us through the key points here.
The giant list of line items. It wasn't real. Hey, Cody, could you pull up that one document that I sent you? It's just kind of the major additions.
Yes, let me get that pulled up, Brian.
I sent Cody a document that just has some of those things that Aaron talked about. It'd just be a little bit easier for us to see than going through line by line, but we can go through line by line of the budget if we'd like to. So there's not a lot of difference. Can you make that a tiny bit bigger, Cody?
Yes, sorry, there we go.
That's about perfect for us on the projector. So everybody see that okay? So as Aaron mentioned, some of the major things that we have. So we have the inventory wands there on the top line. These are what we use to actually inventory materials on the shelf at the branch. They're really cool with our RFID system. The branch staff can just walk right down the stacks and it will just pull every item that's on the shelf and tell us whether it's in the right place, or whether it's something that was checked out and we found it or whatever it was. So those are really, really used. We have 5 of them now. That's for 5 more. The 5 that we have are starting to fail because they've just old, and they get used heavily. The next one is the large format scanner for the Midwest Genealogy Center. That is also very old and there is no support.
Joycelyn?
Walking in.
Joycelyn? Oh, okay.
I'm walking in.
Oh, okay, because it's picking up the wind on your microphone.
Okay, I will turn that off then.
Okay, thanks. We'll wait for you.
No, it's just the line. It's pulled from the budget itself. I just sent it to Cody so that we could see it better. So the next line is for that large format book printer. It is old and we need to get a new one. But the other reason is we can't get support for it anymore. So we can't get it worked on or anything like that if we need to. The next line item.
Brian,
Yeah.
so can you just tell us a little bit about how much this is used or
I'm actually not for sure. It just comes out of our budget. So I know they do a lot of their primary scanning, archival scanning and things like that with the scanner. And that's what it's used for. I'm not for sure of the overall usage of it. But I know they scan a lot of materials there.
So I'm sorry to interrupt you. Does the genealogy center have a budget for like the genealogy center things, or does that also, so that's been switched over to our?
Yeah, they do, but typically technology stuff just comes out of the technology side. That's why it's over here on this side. So we do have to hook it up to some stuff so they can store the stuff that they image to some servers that we have in here. So it typically that stuff just comes out. The support for this actually comes out of the technology budget.
Oh, well, this is the current one that they have. I mean, replacing technology of something that's like our main thing seems like a very good idea.
It's like 12 or 13 years old. So yeah.
That's long.
That's a long time. That's
Long in the tooth.
technology definitely changes in that amount of time, doesn't it?
Yeah. So the next one, POTS lines replacement. Those are just plain old telephone lines, just like we used to have in our houses. And so those are the telecom companies are charging us a lot for those telephone lines.
So does this also include like the ones that we have to have for the elevators? Because I know
Yes.
that there's elevator lines.
Yes. This is for this replaces like all of the security lines, fire lines, elevator lines,
And
all
are you
that
doing
stuff.
bids for that?
Yes.
Because
So
those, I mean, right now, like there's some major competition for.
yeah.
for
So
those.
we're that's what we're gonna do is replace all those with cellular. It's just much cheaper to do that. So that's a one-time cost. Once we get those converted out, there is an annual cost that's over in the voice data internet line for the cellular cost, but this is just for the hardware to actually replace to do it with. The next thing is the primary power supply for the computer room that's just right next door. That unit is 25 years old as well. And there's actually nothing wrong with it other than they are discontinuing support for it. We found that out about midway through last year after we'd already submitted our budget for last year. And so if something were to happen to it and the room were shut down, we could not get support for it. They wouldn't come out and help us or work on it or anything. So really that's the primary reason why we need to replace it. That's a one-time cost also. The cool part about this is this is something that we can turn in on E-rate. And we did, and that's the federal funds that are used for primarily internet and wireless access and things like that. But any power system that supports that hardware, you could turn it on E-rate. We will get close to 80% of that 75,000 back in revenue. And Quan accounts for that on the revenue side. It doesn't show up here in the technology budget. We just pay for it out of here. And then when the E-rate funds come in, he accounts for it on the revenue side. So we will get close to 80% of that back. The next line is the Cisco Meraki. So this is the licensing for all of our switches and wireless access points. And also all of the cloud management. So we can log into a web interface and manage all of these devices. There's 260 wireless access points and about 110 or 15 network switches out there across the system. We can log into one interface and see all of it and configure it all and manage everything. This is similar. A lot of companies are going to this. Aruba, there's other major manufacturers that do this. We chose Meraki and then Cisco purchased them, but this is a one-time cost for 5 years. So that's roughly what, 23,000 a year. We do get to turn that in on E-rate also. We will get about 80% of that back also in revenue. So in the end, that's only going to end up costing us $7,000 or $8,000 a year to manage 350 devices, which I think is pretty remarkable. So that line item will be zeroed out next year also. So for 5 years. And then the last item, as Aaron was talking about, was the new replacement and upgrades. It's basically about the same amount as last year. We added an additional 200,000 because we've got about 250 or 300 laptops that are in desperate need of replacement. And we've got some that are 7 and 8 years old, and they won't be Windows 11 ready or anything. We're going to be a little bit behind on those. And so that's kind of the major items that's making the budget more than it was last year. Everything kind of saw some small increases every year. Most of the line items are all the same as last year in the full budget with some small increases in there. But this is accounting for almost all of the increase for 23-24. So.
So I have a couple of questions for you. So
Yeah.
what is the Blackbaud Razor's Edge NXT CRM for developments and new
So that's how they manage all their fundraising and accept donations and do all that. That's the fundraising side of Blackbaud is what it is.
And
that's the one that we just got in the fall?
No, she's had the NXT version for a while, but we split it out in the budget this year because the costs went up some, and that way we could account for them separately between finance and development.
So that 30,000 came to us instead of fundraising?
Yeah, we just take it out of technology as a software.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just noticed that it wasn't on the budget before, and so that's why I was
Yeah,
asking.
we split them out. We were accounting for them combined
Okay.
before.
And then, so it looks like we lost like a $50,000 grant that we had for technology. Is that for like the little checkout things that they were checking out for internet?
No, so we had that 50,000. If we went for any state or local grants or anything like that, sometimes they required matching funds, and we had that line item in here to be able to pay for that. That's all been moved into a general account
Okay.
now.
Okay, thanks.
So it will just get paid out of another account. So we moved it out of here.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All
We
right.
still have it. It's just all together in one bulk place.
And what was the miscellaneous contingency? Sort of the same thing?
Yes, and we folded that into the new replacements and upgrades. That's why it's.
Okay, that's how it went from
200,000.
140 to 200. Okay.
Yes.
All right, and then the Citrix annual maintenance.
Go ahead.
The Citrix annual maintenance.
Yeah, so we're going away from the Citrix stuff, so that's why that's being taken out.
And so who are you using instead of Citrix?
So that was used for our public desktops, and we're actually just going to standalone desktops. It won't be Citrix anymore. So we're just not going to be using it anymore. All of our servers are in VMware, and so that's what we use for it. That's not going anywhere.
And we're wiping those every day. Is that what you're doing?
The PCs get wiped between each session.
And they're not on network, so we don't have to have any protection against those.
Not really, no. They have software on that locks them to keep people from installing anything or do anything like that. And then when somebody ends their session, they actually reboot and they get reset to the way they were before. They get wiped between each session. So, yep.
And then NetSweeper, do we?
That's in the MoreNet subscription now. So the MoreNet line item.
Okay. And then the other one was so you addressed the Cisco Meraki one already, right? And then the last one that I had on here was so you had router support for Cisco. Is that something that you grouped into a different one also?
No, we've moved away from Cisco actually on those. So we've got another switch router combo that we're going to be using. It doesn't really require any annual maintenance, which is nice. Yep.
All right. So I also saw that we put in training for so we'll have a training budget for security for this is for 5,500. I thought the training that we were looking at to have everybody was a little bit more expensive than this. So
It was actually a little bit less. We've added to it.
okay.
It was only like 3,400 and we needed a little bit better package for that. So we added to it. So yeah, this is the kind of end user security awareness training for all staff.
Right. Okay.
That's what that's for.
Right. Which could protect us a lot more in the end.
Microsoft has a built-in phishing campaign also. We're going to be doing that after the training is over. So there will be a general kind of phishing thing that's going on for email as well. So Ron, I know you, but
Excuse me, Brian. With regard to these inventory walls, the purpose of that is to actually make more efficiency for the current employees as opposed to eliminating employees. Is that safe to assume?
oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because I thought I had this image right away of these walk-in restaurants where you actually got a person to engage for orders replaced by these devices. So we're not.
Oh no.
Okay.
It was nearly impossible to get an accurate inventory of what's on the shelf at the branch if somebody just has to walk along and read every book and with a laptop and check each item. This just goes down and actually just scans everything and tells us if everything's in the right place or if we're missing something that should be there. Yeah, so this actually is allowing us to do something that was not really possible before.
Sure.
We had the RFID tag. So it takes about, for an average branch, it takes 3 to 5 days to inventory the whole collection.
Amazing.
North Independence takes a little bit longer. Some of them with larger collections take a little bit longer.
Sure.
It takes 5 to 7 days. But, yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm. They're super handy. So,
But again, my only concern was that this in no way would jeopardize the person's position.
oh no, absolutely not. Matter of fact, it helps them do their job a whole lot better. So, yeah. So, yeah, no. That's the general technology budget. If you look on down, there's the voice data internet budget. You can see it's actually a couple $100,000 less than it was last year. We're renewing our contracts with AT&T for our internet and data connections to the branches. And then we're switching from Windstream to Bluebird. Bluebird's another kind of local carrier here in East Central and North Missouri. And they're going to be providing the network connections to our remote branches, kind of like Edgerton, Dearborn, Lone Jack, places like that. And they're significantly less than Windstream was, which is awesome. And then also kind of replacing those old security fax, elevator, telephone lines with cellular is saving us some money. So yeah, so that is actually working out really great. The internet connections and the data connections to the branches, we do get E-rate funding back on those also. So we get about 80% of those 3 line items back. So yeah, So really good deal there. That's voice data internet. And then the last is the electronic resources like Aaron was talking about. We did reduce that budget a little bit this year by about 300,000, a little bit more than 300,000. The online high school program is still in there. And then we moved 3 other kind of accounts over to this account. And it's really because we have an electronic resources librarian now that handles all of this stuff for us, and he made some move those to that person.
So I have a question for you based on those things from that budget.
Yeah.
Is are they, I know we have the lady that tracks, or the man, I guess not, that tracks like how much people are checking out and stuff, because we're investing a lot of money in digital periodicals, like even for like board members, we're doing that for a lot of different people and saving, it's like now everything is making sure that we're saving as much as possible. Because I want to make sure that if we're spending $250,000 on periodicals and some of those things. So some books, I know that they're getting checked out more than others. Do we have someone that's monitoring very closely books that aren't being used and periodicals that are not being used that maybe we don't need to subscribe to as often or anymore?
So that's part of the exercise. I'd say a month or two ago is that Brian's team put together a spreadsheet that kind of tracked use by database, and that accounts for that $300,000 decrease in electronic or in databases.
Yeah, remember, this isn't books or this isn't ebooks or anything like that. That's out of the materials. That's out of the materials budget. This is just the online resource, like the online research databases. So that's through the website.
And so look here.
Well, the business journal, that seems, like, I thought that was like a periodical, like that people are searching like a magazine, right?
Right. Yep.
So that's what I was asking, is for like the magazines that we're using and whatever, it says e-reference books. So go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So this one right here.
Mhm.
So we have statistics on the e-reference, the Gale stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. We can
We
provide.
do with magazines too. And then sometimes with Overdrive, it's a package. So we can't always individually select like you would a paper subscription. There's a package of 100 titles.
Yeah.
Here you go.
Well, because I'm wondering, for the price, ebooks, we know that people are checking them out, regularly. And I understand, it's like, okay, I subscribe to Netflix. I'm whatever, I have to have the ones that they choose for me. I understand that. But what I'm just saying is, as we're watching this, are people checking these out and are they getting use out of them? Because there's no reason for us to subscribe to something that maybe isn't being used. Like, if somebody's coming in and reading the Kansas City Star or the Business Journal or some of these things, and we know that they're using those, then we're getting value out of that subscription, right? But I just wondered if someone was on top of that. And it sounds like somebody's looking at all of that. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure, because, sometimes in technology, it's easy for us to, just say we have this technology, but maybe we're not using it. So
Between the electronic resources and ebooks, there's actually several people that are tracking that usage. So yeah.
And the Excel high school program, why did that decrease?
Actually, it's because the state now funds part of it. All we have to do is pay for the actual scholarships themselves, and they are cheaper now. And the state pays the platform fee and all the licensing and all that kind of stuff. So we don't have to pay for that.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. So same amount of scholarships, all of that kind of stuff, just cheaper. So, yep.
All right, thank you.
That's the main technology budgets.
So we had talked about before, I just want to address this, that's one of the things that we had talked about is possibly doing some other upgrades to hardware within the libraries and the things that you were looking at doing. I know they're maybe forward thinking, and we want to make sure that we're taking, those things into consider. And maybe some of the wands that you have sounds like a great alternative to some of those things. But I'm just saying for like checking out, we were talking about the expense like of those stations and some of those type of things with that hardware that we have, because we just want to make sure we're using our dollars that's most efficiently. And of course, new computers for staff is it's just a smart thing to do because they run faster, you can be more efficient, and you can have tighter controls, and they have sometimes more software. But I just wondered, like looking forward, are we preparing? Are we looking through? I mean, I know you do so much with so many different things and throughout the library. I just want to make sure that we are being visionary with our future of technology, because it's ever changing, in the last 30 years, technology has changed so much. And I just want to make sure that from our perspective that we're looking forward to kind of what are the things. I mean, it sounds like from phone lines, we're redoing those because that's out of necessity. They're going to stop supporting those. We're going to have, with different technology comes different aspects for that. So I just wondered kind of what your vision was for technology for this next year, to just kind of hear where you're thinking that, and it's the thing about vision is it's not set in stone, right? It's kind of, what are your dreams? Give me your dreams for the next year.
Wow. So we're really pretty good on a lot of the core stuff, server storage, networking. All of that stuff is all really good. PCs are really good, like physical full desktops. Those are in very good shape. They're 6 years old now. They're going to be. There's no reason why we shouldn't be able to get 8 or 10 out of them. I fully believe that. We've got Windows 11 running on some of them now. They run fantastic. So those should be fine. The main thing is the laptops. That was one of the things that we really need to get ahead of. The self-checks, we did talk about doing self-checks for the customers to come in and use. That is something that we're going to have to do eventually. We kind of tabled it this year due to some of the cash flow things that we're having. We did an RFQ for those, like a request for quote for those, just so we could get some idea of how much they would cost. And we did, so we have 120 self-checks now. When we went through our analysis, we got the number down to somewhere around 80. And so that's that's like a 30% reduction or a third. And so we got bids back. They range from, just for a standalone station, no payment options or anything like that, they were $500,000 to $600,000 for 80 new kiosks. If you add payment, they go up a little bit. We also looked at different apps for customers to use to do checkouts on their own. There is a company that specializes in that, but that's all they do. It's kind of strange. You can't do any account management. You can't pay fines. You can't do anything else. It's simply walk in the door, check something out, and walk out. It's a really interesting solution. The big thing that we want to do this year is change our app, our customer use app, and it will allow self-checkout for customers. And by the end of the year, they will be able to even, when they check it out, it will turn off the security bit on the RFID tag. And they'll be able to just do the whole thing right there and walk out the door.
Right. Well, with the new scanners that you're buying, that seems like that company may be one who could say, hey, I'm going to walk through these, and then it would just automatically do that. So I'm actually glad that you are waiting on those. And the reason why is because technology changes so rapidly. Yeah. And that by this time next year, there may be an opportunity to go to one of the library conventions and say, hey, that's exactly what I'm looking for. And it might be a lot cheaper than the 800,000. So I'm glad that you've kind of tabled off that. The other thing that I wanted to see, with the ones that we have, I've been into the libraries multiple times and kind of observed the self-check machines, and watching people prefer to go to the desk, and have somebody check them out. And so I just wondered, of those machines, how often they're being used. Like
about 55 or 60% of our circulation goes through the self-check machines.
Okay,
So a little over half.
so but most of ours, we do a lot of stuff online, right? So a lot of that is done online.
Sure, ebooks, all that kind of stuff all happen online. People that you can manage your account, like place holds, renew items, do that kind of stuff online. But actually checking a physical item out, you still have to come in and actually obviously do that because you got to pick the material up or whatever it is. But yeah, we pulled a ton of stats on the self checks, and we pretty consistently average 55 to 60%. Some branches do a little bit more, some do a little bit less, obviously. And we have some that are up in the mid 60s for their circulation. So
And that's how you went from 120 down to 80.
yeah. Plus, we had a lot of stations in the beginning that were configured for returns only or checkout only. And so we were like, you know what, we can just combine those. So we just combined that, on our list, we just combined those into one station. That got rid of quite a few. So we were able to get the numbers down quite a bit.
Well, I really do think that, especially with this new machine that you're saying that can inventory on a line, kind of like what they do with police scanners that can go through a parking lot and check everybody's license plates at the same time. It would be nice to see what technology will bring to us even by this time next year. So thank you for all the investigation on that, Brian. I know that wasn't easy.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
And Brian, with regard to the laptops being replaced, is there any residual value that might be a benefit to, say, like a middle school student or somebody who doesn't need quite the horsepower of the laptops that you need? I mean,
Yeah,
I'm thinking along maybe potentially donations to, some communities where maybe.
There is a local company called PCs for People.
Oh, yeah.
That we can talk to about doing that. Some of these are pretty ancient and we can't do a lot, but yeah, we'll be talking to folks like that to see what we can do with them.
Great. Thank you.
PCs for People is a wonderful organization. They can also what we call cannibalize it to do different things. But if these computers aren't able to handle Windows 11, it's going to be really hard for people to use it here.
It can be doorstops.
Yeah. So, but they do a fantastic job, and like Joyce said, they're a great company to work with. They do help a lot of people, and so we'll be talking with them.
Great.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I know there's a blind organization for blind people that need to use, PCs, and I'm not sure if they work with that one or not. I might look into that to just give you another name.
They're great. They're a great organization. So, yep. So that's we're looking to replace the app this year also, and that'll have the self-checkout feature, and that's by the company who makes our online catalog. So that is for BiblioCommons. And the really cool part about switching the app is it all functions the same way as our catalog does. The searching is all the same. The language in it is all the same. So people going back and forth between them makes it super easy. So we're really looking forward to doing that this year. Really, we kind of envisioned it as a status quo kind of year. We've got to get all the POTS lines replaced. We have to flip from Windstream to Bluebird this year in those 9 locations. And then if we replace a bunch of laptops, that's kind of a thing for a little while. And then we have to replace the power center in the computer room. So IT has some kind of just major infrastructure kind of tasks on their plate this year. So
Then it should be noted that there's room within the budget to experiment, right? With new technologies, whether that be a Riverside, East Independence. My eyes are on Memory Lab, which is grant funded.
Right.
But we're observing that, and that could grow over time and small investments be made there. So new technologies for public use are definitely a part of our vision for the coming year. But with all good ideas, they start small and pilot and see how they work, and then expand if needed in the coming year.
we did that with the hotspots that people check out in the Chromebooks. They started small and got larger.
So you're kind of referring to like 3D printers and some of the laser printers and maybe having that at one of the places to pilot?
Sure.
Because the technology has come down so inexpensive now. I mean, you can buy 3D printers for so much less than they used to be.
Again,
I had a question, comment. Back to the database. There's kind of a balance. I'm not really speaking to you, Brian, because you know this. There's kind of a balance between what databases you have for access and at what number is it worth keeping the database.
Yeah.
Many of our databases, especially our news databases and our scholarly databases, are used by students who are away at campus and their campuses don't have it. So if we don't offer it, then it's not available to our constituents. So it's important to keep access in mind over just,
we do a lot of that. We have a monthly selection committee meeting where we kind of are constantly looking at the stats and the usage. And we definitely look at cost per use, but we also understand that a lot of these are unique resources. So usage may not be so high on them. And so it is a balancing act between, this is super unique, but the usage isn't as high. And so we're just constantly going through that. And some of the stuff that we took that we're removing from the list this year are things that are available out there on the internet, things like that, and had some low usage, or maybe the cost got real high on them. And so that's what we did, is went through and just kind of pulled some of those out. But yeah, so yeah, we definitely are always balancing that cost versus unique resource.
I just remember my years in college, I would leave my little college library and go to Boston Public Library and check a journal out one at a time, send the copying machine so I can get the articles I needed to do my schoolwork. And that's an important part of access.
Mm-hmm.
Good job.
So that's what we have for the.
So for the promotion of technology services, that more like promoting like the things that we offer, like are we working with marketing or can we work with marketing to let people know that we do have those Chromebooks available, that we do have those hotspots, that we have, like on the library page, one of the things that I noticed, and technology is kind of that area where it's like we actually have a lot to do with the website because we're making sure that it's running, but marketing controls a lot of that. And with us maybe not having, we have to work so closely with them to promote the services that we have. Because even for the library lovers, I got on there and I was trying to find it. I literally had to call, I'm like, that should be like the first thing that comes up on there. And having those Chromebooks and having those things. I mean, we have a phenomenal library system. And I think that just that promoting what we offer, making sure it's, showing, hey, did you know that we did this? Did you know that we did this? To where it's almost like a video presentation of when you go to the library, it's showing you these are all of the wonderful things that we offer. These are all the wonderful things that we offer. And they could click on that and it would take it to another page. Because with us offering so many different things, like I didn't even realize that we went live with the passport thing. I didn't know that was live. I mean, I knew we talked about it, but I didn't know it had went live until you mentioned it. And it was like, I didn't know that. It's like I'm still working with the post office and I can go to a library. So it's like, I want to make sure that, if I'm on the board and I don't even know that it's there, it's like, dang, we've got to make sure that we're promoting the services that we're offering, because we are such an amazing library system. And I think that that's our job to be good stewards, is to be promoting it. So that's just something that I had wanted to bring up, were those three things.
We did a pretty good job of that during COVID, because as we came out of COVID, we were like, oh, remember, we have PCs, we have internet. Now we have these hotspots, these Chromebooks. It's something we do need to circle back to. And we definitely send those things out via the monthly newsletters that we send out in emails and do that. It is a constant struggle with the website because we do offer so much. We're constantly trying to float things up to the front to let people know that we have these things. But we just have a lot. So we're constantly trying.
It's been great.
Yeah,
So I've been
Yeah.
learning a lot of new things just from
yeah.
Facebook, Instagram, all those that you guys.
It's almost like we need like a running list and we're just going down. It's like, we're going to put this out, we're going to put this out. And then we circle back to the top and we start back down the list again because it's a lot of stuff. It's
Well,
a
and
lot
so
of
many websites now are kind of going to that, almost like that media presentation to where you pull it up. It's like constantly changing in front of you that shows you, hey, these are the upcoming events that we have. And I know it does a little bit of that, but it's like we almost just need to maybe even have a button that says what's new in technology, just to make it to where it's because if we don't toot our own horn to tell them what we have, then people don't know. And people don't necessarily read emails, they don't read mailers sometimes, and sometimes they'll go to the website and it's what hits them first and just say, what's new in technology? And maybe they click on that and go to the technology website. But it's just something I want to make sure that we're promoting our services as much as possible because by far we have such an outstanding library.
A lot of our online programs that we do and in-person programs, we try to add those things in also. So if it's something that's like for online training or something, we'll promote like a research database that goes along with it, or we'll say, hey, you can check out a hotspot, or we do that with the Excel Adult High School. So we're constantly throwing those things in as a little ad also to let people know that we have these things where it's appropriate. Because a lot of people don't know. They may take an online course and they may not know that we do that. So we're constantly trying to do a little bit of advertising midstream also. So
Definitely a constant battle for all of us.
yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. And we struggle with that on the website. Whenever we built it, we did have quite a bit of research on the website as far as the sliders go that are moving things. People tend to move past those pretty quickly and get down to the meat of the stuff. So if you have like a big hero image at the top of the page, they tend to get past that because they're trying to get to their account or they're trying to find a book. A ton of people just come to our website just to go straight to the catalog.
Yeah.
And we have begged our vendor to do advertising on our catalog page also. So we're trying to get that also.
Yeah, and maybe having a search. I don't know what the best answer is, but I do know that like Library Lovers, I literally could not find it. It was like that should be like one of the top buttons that I can click. And
there's different ways to get to it. So the very top thing on the site supporting us goes to Library Lovers. It's in the top right next to my account. I know.
It's just not very easy to find if you don't know that in advance.
There's one way down on the page. If you scroll down far enough, there's one at the very bottom in the footer. So we tried to make it so there was a bunch of different ways. If people thought, oh, I just want to donate to the library, that takes them there. Or if they think there's just different ways to get to it. So,
I had a question about 3D printing. Yeah, I've jumped full feet into that in my other part of my life, but a lot of people think you buy a 3D printer, you draw something pretty and you press print. It doesn't work that way. If we do end up delving into this, what we will need basically is 3D printing, someone with expertise in that area. Because it usually takes an appointment to work out the tweaks, make sure there's the necessary support, that you're using the right materials and how to finish it, all those things that a person just wants. If they knew all that, they would have their own 3D printer.
Yeah, hobbyists will do it. They'll just figure it out themselves. So yeah, that's really it's really not the money. It's really space. It depends on how you do it. Some library systems you send us the 3D printer file, we'll print the thing for you, and then you can come in and pick it up. And then other library systems actually are like, here you go, figure it out,
Yeah.
The one where you just kind of put it out there and just let people fend for themselves, those are typically destined for failure.
And broken machine.
Yeah. And so, so space and some expertise around it are probably the two big
Then you have
It's a two big
safety
hurdle.
issues and ventilation, depending on the material.
Depending on what type you use, yes, there are those that require special ventilation. And so when we first started talking about beta testing these, we were, do we just let somebody roll it into a collaboration space and use it in there? But then we're like, okay, it could take hours for something to print. So do we tie up a collaboration space all day when those get used heavily by people? So the space issue, securing them, having somebody that can realign them and make sure they stay clean and functional and all that kind of stuff is another thing. I have people in IT that are super knowledgeable. Actually, we have somebody who runs his own YouTube channel around it. But they have full-time jobs. I need them to keep managing my network and doing that kind of stuff.
So let me just say, one of the things like at the high schools, they have a lot of, well, at Liberty North, they have the Beak Club, which is like instead of the Geek Club, they call it the Beak Club, which helps with that. Stately High School has one. They have a lot of different, where they are high schoolers that are, they work for technology, right? So the teachers can bring their laptops to them. Most of them are kids that are going to be more technology savvy. And so that could be ran by volunteers. It could be ran by some of those teenagers that wouldn't take a network admin salary to run them. I mean, it's like you have a minimum wage kid that would come in and that's going to be their job and they love to do that. I mean, that's something that, I'm thinking of my own kid, he's 15 years old and he can, teach other kids. He teaches other kids at the SAGE program for North Kansas City High School. They did a lot of that with there. And it's just, I want kids that don't have their own 3D printers at home to be able to access that. And through the library is an opportunity for any kid to have the same level of opportunity. And some of the schools have it, but they don't have it in their regular programming. They have it only in their SAGE programming. And so I just want to make sure that if we have the opportunity, it doesn't have to be ran by a network admin that's making $100,000. I mean, it could
I'm
be
just
ran
saying,
by teenagers that could do that.
Take somebody extra.
And so
That's what I mean. It's going to take somebody extra.
and I definitely think that if somebody sends in something and it's going to be a failure when it prints, teaching them how to do it and saying, hey, this is what you did wrong. You've got your specs wrong. It's going to be, too big or too little, because then that's offering help.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely think that when you're looking at the 3D printing program, that you can maybe we can partner with North Kansas City school system for their SAGE program to say, hey, kind of what are you guys doing? How's your lab look? What is it like? How much time, how much resources? We couldn't do resin printers because of the venting problems. That's just out of the question. But
Johnson County. They have a resin printer.
Do they in the schools? Well, they must have really.
They're in the library.
They probably have like ventilation.
Yes, they do.
I think they got
because
that.
that's the toxicity of having that. It's like, we don't want to go into that. But the regular resin, not
PLA or ABS.
The regular 3D printers are not needing as much ventilation. So I don't want to table it because I definitely think that it's something that is needed amongst the kids, especially because it's really a cool thing. Even if we did it for a short period of time, we might even be able to rent 3D printers from somewhere if we just wanted to do it for like a summer program, kind of like what we do for the summer reading programs. Maybe the 3D printers aren't something that would be needed through the whole year. We could just do that as something. So I don't want to table it because I definitely, that's the reason why I signed up for the technology committee, is because I believe that all kids should have the opportunity to do some of that, and not just kids, adults too, because it's really cool once you start making things, the things that it gives.
So part of our work in the coming year, we'll be building out curriculum to kind of support these types of initiatives. So to Brian's point about the knowledge and skills that are needed to use a 3D printer. I mean, just at the ground level, I mean, obviously individuals can download free 3D models, but then there's also the modeling piece of it. And that's kind of an in-demand type of skill that we could teach also in the library. So with the popularity of gaming and digital animation, now many of these skills are transferable into the 3D realm also. So, but this is all types of things that we're looking at in the coming year. So I'm not saying it's easy,
It's
but
definitely
it's definitely on our
But
radar.
it's definitely where you have that realm but you've got a lot of teenagers that are doing classes and doing stuff that we could pull from. And frankly, part of a job resume or an interview is print me something. Show me how you know how to use this and have them print something for you. Because you can tell pretty quickly if it's going to fail or if it's going to work. So it's an opportunity for us to have a partnership with some of the schools, whatever school that you choose. I'm sure that any of the schools have some type of programs for technology, but it's just, it would be a good partnership with those schools. Even if we can't do it all here, we might be able to partner with some of the other programs that already have it in place.
I agree. So.
I'll get off my soapbox now.
We're with you. We're with you. It's definitely something we're thinking about.
Creative side of the library is also something that people need.
So it's
Not
the
just about
skills, the
research.
CAD skills, the 3D sculpting. I mean, my daughter's working on a project right now that's boggling my mind, but just it's more than just what I'm just saying, it's more than just press print. There's a whole back end of getting people prepared to be able to print successfully. And I'd like to see that be part of it as well. That's all.
I agree.
And then I can probably print something like my son can. You start having classes, I'm gonna have to take a class so that I can get up to his level.
Absolutely.
That's all I had. What's the next on the list, Teresa?
Visitors' comments. Visitors' comments. We did not have.
Cody, we don't have visitors. Okay, then next one.
Other business?
I don't have any other business. All right, next.
It's adjourned.
Do I have a motion to adjourn this meeting? Okay, thank you very much. All those in favor? You have to say favor. Michael, is it okay if we adjourn?
Yes.
All right. Thanks for being online, Michael. All
Yeah.
right.